Good morning, GenAI Summit. What a way to start this week. Thank you all for being here today. Before we start, let's all give a big round of applause to George Nikolaitakis and the GenAI Summit team for putting this wonderful conference together. So impressive, so inspiring. My name is Thanassis Sofianos. I'm the founder of Relevance Digital Agency, and I will be proudly moderating this panel today. I lead a team of 200 wonderful experts, and to us, the human factor, upskilling and reskilling are dear, sensitive, and business-critical matters, and I'm very happy I will be learning today here from the best. Generative AI is transforming the way we learn, work, create, and make decisions. And while AI automates tasks, analyzes data, and scales operations, it does not replace the uniquely human capacities that organizations and societies depend on. The human equation refers to the values, abilities, motivations, choices, and relationships that only humans bring. And in the era of GenAI, these become more important, not less. For a change, I'm going to start with the only gentleman in this panel, Konstantinos. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Konstantinos is a partner and the head of workforce transformation at PricewaterhouseCoopers Hellas. So, Konstantine, in our work building AI systems for retailers and marketing teams, we often see companies launch promising GenAI pilots, but struggle to translate them into lasting organization-wide impact. From your experience leading PwC's workforce transformation practice and supporting C-suite teams, what distinguishes the organizations that successfully scale GenAI from those that remain in the early experimentation?
Cool. So I guess this must be one of the most pertinent questions that most of the people who work in a corporate environment actually debate in the last couple of years. I think Greece is not that far behind versus Europe or the US in some areas when it comes to technical deployment and uses of GenAI. What we're experiencing is that we've entered a stage of experimentation. And it's almost like you mentioned that there's a lot of proof of concepts and testing, and it's almost like spaghetti throwing, and you try to see what sticks, and not a lot of it sticks. And the issue is that I think most organizations are trying to solve their old problems with just a new technology. And what they need to do is start to think about that there are different ways of solving things and possibly new problems. And to move away from the theoretical, a lot of organizations basically have given the responsibility of this testing and implementation of GenAI solutions to the technology departments, which is a reasonable way of doing it. The issue is that there is not a lot of sponsorship from the business. There is not a lot of understanding from the business stakeholders what GenAI can do for them. So therefore, a lot of times, all of this testing actually just ends up being just nice toys, but actually never get into full production. That's one thing. And the other thing, and it's a bit counterintuitive, a lot of organizations want to actually see the benefit and the value straight away, otherwise they don't want to invest. And what happens is they are investing in pilots and solutions that are very customer-facing and customer-oriented, because that's where they can make most of the return of the investment. The issue is there that a lot of these solutions basically end up not getting to a full scale and production, because there are a lot of regulatory, there are a lot of issues, there are a lot of questions how GenAI solutions can engage with the customers. A better approach is, because we're still in the learning phase, to try and test those solutions mainly in the back office functions, where you've got a lot more control as an organization, and most likely you're able to scale it faster. And what we're seeing is that some companies who have gone that route are seeing some results faster. And just to finish this off, I guess there is no right recipe. The most successful organizations actually have given top-level sponsorship. They have given full collaboration and incentives for HR and IT to collaborate, because this technology is not only technical, but it's also about retraining your own staff. And also implementation of incentives to actually push people to start using it faster.
That last one is really interesting. Incentivize people to adopt new technologies, right? And I keep the quick wins as well, because, you know, quick wins can lead to like next wins, and next wins like to big impact. So thank you. We have with us today Valerie Focke from OpenAI. Thank you for coming from London for this conference. And that says a lot about OpenAI and how you want to educate people as well. Let's see what happens in the public sector. As countries roll out GenAI across education and the public sector, what's the key advice you give leaders who want this shift to be responsible, smooth, and sustainable?
So we're seeing a lot of interest in the public sector and education to embrace AI, and I think Konstantinos said it quite well there. There's a lot of interest and almost a testing ground to do a lot of things, but also caution to ensure that what is being done is sustainable, it really does benefit the organization. And then when we look at public sector and also education, there is an enormous opportunity to impact quite significantly how we interact with generative AI. So on the one hand, we've seen a lot of, and Greece is actually a really wonderful example of this, the incorporation of generative AI and AI in general into governmental services, particularly public-facing services. So for example, being able to get advice that you might need using a chatbot as an example is one way to direct those services. But we see a huge amount of very sophisticated use cases emerging. I mean, some might say generative AI in the public sector can also get quite nuanced. There are, in some cases, even ministers entirely made of AI. For those of you who have read the news. But with this in mind, we see the opportunity here not too dissimilar from what you might expect within an organization. We see an enormous amount of productivity time already spent, and we talk a lot about how do we really not just implement it in a safe and sustainable way, but how do we prove that there is value that we can deliver and that that value can be delivered quickly. And perhaps some caution has emerged over recent sort of months, I would say, about what is the sort of speed to sort of value. And actually, the studies we do indicate actually quite significant time savings, that being the first and foremost, and that applies also to governmental services. And I think where we can indicate that generative AI can automate workflows, provide better citizen services, that's the sort of primary interest. Now, if I swing that lens over into education, again, there are lots of parallels there between the two, but in working, for instance, with Amalia and the team here, we see an enormous opportunity to really impact a shifting field. Education is one where we're seeing the highest adoption of AI tools. In fact, if I look at the use of ChatGPT today, we have around 800 million people using it weekly. 800 million people use it weekly, 40% of those are in education. That gives us an enormous responsibility, so on your point of safety and making sure it's efficacy, but it does give us a really exciting opportunity to also help shape and think about how we work there together. So both from the learner's perspective and how do we adapt curricula, how do we ensure that teachers are teaching in a world where AI is this prevalent. And I think there's just an enormous amount of co-creation at the moment with ourselves in the labs, but also from the perspective of partners like the nation of Greece and others, Singapore, UAE, who are actively integrating it into their curricula. And then really the final point I want to leave on that question with, coming back to the sort of safety aspect, both in the sort of public sector, but most keenly also in the education, in the education is that we continue to do research, not just on the efficacy of what we deliver and how that will change the workplace and make work faster and make you AI-enabled, but also simultaneously that we look at it, the impact on learning too and cognitive outcomes. And that research we continue to inform to ensure that both remains safe and really helpful to the next generation.
We have a long way to go, but it's really soothing to know that coming from OpenAI as well, that in Greece we are in a good track. So, thank you. Now let's see what big organizations are doing in this front. So, Nancy Zachariadou, director of CSR at Piraeus Bank. I have read about Piraeus Bank's CSR strategy implemented under Equal, and it looks amazing. Can you tell us about it? In the era of GenAI, how do you see CSR initiatives of this scale becoming catalysts for large-scale upskilling, especially for those at risk of being left behind?
Thanassis, thank you very much for the question. At Piraeus Bank, Equal constitutes our flagship social impact program, and since its start in 2022, it has grown into one of the most comprehensive CSR programs built around 4 pillars: gender equality, children welfare, the new generation, of course, and vulnerable groups. Through these pillars, we design and develop programs that support young people, women, and communities across the country with skills, training, personal development, and pathways to equal opportunities for growth. What makes Equal unique, it's not only its exponential evolution. Those 3 years, we started from 5 initiatives, and now we have up and running 34 initiatives, but also its national reach. Our programs operate across Greece, from major cities to remote and underserved areas, ensuring that opportunity is not a matter of geography. Over time, Equal has become the core of Piraeus Bank CSR strategy because it reflects our belief that corporate responsibility, it's not just for doing good, it's about creating equal access. Access to knowledge, to skills, to role models, to networks. And today, over 29,000 beneficiaries have been supported through these programs. Let me give you a few examples. We run a series of programs focusing on women, supporting entrepreneurship, employability, and active participation to the economy. We empower educators through GenAI-enabled training so they can integrate new learning tools into their classrooms. And of course, we support young career readiness through Project Future and the Piraeus Startup Accelerator, which helps young people to develop future-ready skills, connect with employers, and navigate new forms of work and innovation. Across all these programs, GenAI is already enhancing the learning journey, making knowledge more accessible, helping educators tailor content faster, and giving participants new ways to explore ideas and develop their skills. And this brings me to your second point. We do not see GenAI as something that replaces the learning process. We see it as a pedagogical accelerator, a tool that makes learning more personalized, more inclusive, and more aligned with the skills that are emerging faster than ever. In a world where skills are evolving more quickly than job titles, the use of GenAI tools helps people remain relevant, confident, and employable. For us, CSR plays a critical role in this transformation because if GenAI is reshaping the world of work, we must make sure to contribute so that no one is left behind, that everyone, young people, women, vulnerable groups, educators, have equal access to future-ready skills, and that technology serves people and not the other way around.
Thank you, Nancy. That's impressive. I work with you on the Startup Accelerator. I was a mentor, and I have to congratulate you because, I was impressed by the diligence and energy you invested, and I was also inspired by the fact that you as a big organization, you're leading the efforts. It's not expected, and I think that many others should follow your lead. Bravo on that, and keep up the good work. Amalia is the co-founder of The Tipping Point, an NGO that empowers students and educators all over Greece, providing access and mentorship. Amalia, you've led The Tipping Point from 5 schools to more than 1,000, supporting over 80,000 students and 3,000 educators, including many from underprivileged communities. Based on this experience, what have you learned about promoting equitable access to opportunity? And as GenAI evolves, where do you see the most significant risks of it reinforcing existing inequalities? Thank you.
Good morning. What we have learned working with schools across Greece, especially in remote and underprivileged areas, is that today inequality is not about access to technology. The real challenge is bigger than this. Today, imagine that almost every school in Greece has internet, and with this and the basic device, you have already what you need in order to start using GenAI tools. Sorry. So, what is the most important is about whether educators and students know how to engage with AI creatively and critically and not be just passive consumers. And that is where we see a new divide, that inequality is shifting from infrastructure to skills. So today you don't need any more expensive labs or fancy equipment in order to make personalized learning. And with GenAI, a teacher in a small village can create, engage the students with an interactive lesson, which can create in a few minutes. They can create materials tailored to each student, and they can bring a global perspective into their classrooms. So it's important to see how to educate all these people. Today, at the tipping point, we start very early. When a few months after ChatGPT was launched, we started working with educators who wanted to make sense of this shift. And there is always a small group of educators who raise their hand first, and they open the door for the rest of the school community. And today, after supporting more than 3,000 educators across Greece, many of them over 50 years old in underprivileged areas, we see something very clear, that when educators feel confident to use GenAI tools in the classroom, then students gain not just access to them, they start experimenting, they ask better questions, they know that they can explore new paths. So it's important to support this community and to invest in an education that builds skills and not just access to tools.
That's great, and a project full of purpose. And it's nice to know that, in the question that who's educating the educators, it's people like you who are leading this, and thank you for your work. Konstantinos, back to you. Let's get a bit more technical now. If you were advising a leadership team starting from zero, what is the minimum viable upskilling plan that would meaningfully prepare their people for the GenAI era?
I guess, first of all, I want to touch a couple of things I heard. Skills are very important, and they need to be baked into that program, for sure. Also, the connection with the outside world is very important. So I guess whatever program you want to design, you need to be solving for organizational agility. You want to make your organization become more agile. So you need to increase the speed of the organization. You need to ensure that it becomes more focused in the new technologies. And we've heard that effectively technology is no longer a barrier, it's an accelerator. So the question is, you should not spend that much money on technical infrastructure, the technology readily available. Most of the employees of organizations actually use use GenAI, whether the organizations actually give it or not, through ChatGPT or any other system. So the first thing that all organizations need to do is actually counterintuitive, go and train the executive board of what this new world is. Because this new world will not be only about optimizing processes, it will be about redesigning roles. So if you want to make the biggest bang for your buck and have the highest return on investment, the low-hanging fruit is go and optimize processes. The real prize is actually redesign how your business actually works. And to do that, you need to bake into your program a redesign of roles, take into account new skills, and effectively not call it an upskilling program, call it a real change management program, because it's multifaceted. So just to summarize it, you start from the top, you do executive sponsorship, very clear tone from the top. You make sure, and I mentioned it before, HR and IT become huge collaborators. You create incentives in order to push people to actually move away from their comfort zone, because your objective is speed. So it's not good enough if your upskilling program delivers results in 3 years. You kind of have to, increase your speed. And keep at it very frequently, because the technologies and what it can do basically changes every few months. So there is also another issue, is like you kind of need to dynamically revisit this almost, I would say, every quarter, because there will be new things coming your way that organizations might not even know that they're happening.
Thank you. It's obviously a bit more complicated. But I will keep that redesigning roles to elevate human contribution is the way to go to, at some point, become AI native as organizations. Thank you. Valerie, there is often a big gap between AI ambition and actual classroom impact. From what you've seen, what early actions make the biggest difference in turning AI strategy into real learning outcomes?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. And what I would say from a classroom impact perspective, and again, we're hearing a lot of common themes here around what are the skills that you need, how do you adapt, and how do you prepare? And we heard Amalia talking about sort of generational differences as well, and how do we ensure that we're bringing everyone along? And I think the first part is demystifying it. So really ensuring that people understand what AI is, what it can do, and what it can't do. And I think from the point of demystification, showing the art of the possible, one of the things that I personally found the most satisfying is when I'm in a classroom or we're co-designing workshops or hackathons, as we like to refer to them as. So if we think about it in that context, the amount of creativity, the amount of things that I wouldn't even have thought of to do with ChatGPT that we see. We have students today building agents with no code. So there's lots of things that we see in the classroom. Now, what I would say in order to prepare, it's first of all demystify. That's one. What can AI do and what can it not do? Secondly, being really curious, and that's both teachers and students. And we believe firmly that putting the teachers in the driving seat and making them part of this. We already know that a younger generation will be using it, but we really want to put the educators as part of that dialogue, as part of the group that is enthusiastic, that finds new ways of teaching, of potentially even assessing students, that are delivering classroom experiences that are different. And that can be through the incorporation of videos that they've generated with AI. It can be lots of different ways, but I think the sort of very forward-thinking and creative approach is one. And then finally, of course, we talk about learning outcomes. And so from our perspective, ensuring that learning outcomes are preserved and augmented through the use of AI, not replaced, is critical. And that does mean potentially revisiting things like curricula. It does mean delivery methods or creating also 2 swim lanes. So we see a lot of, for instance, universities adopting a 2-fold assessment system, one in which case you're able and encouraged to use AI and you have to declare your use of AI, and conversely ones where you're not able to use it. And this adaptation, I think, is something that we'll continue to see iterate in the next few years. But from our perspective, the indications show that, back to the point of personalized learning, I think I heard here at the beginning, that certainly is true. The way that students engage with it is highly impactful in shaping also their learning outcomes. And as I mentioned, it's something that we very closely follow in terms of our own research with a dedicated research team focused on cognitive outcomes. So with this in mind, I'm optimistic that we're being met with the amount of curiosity. I think the understanding of AI has grown through events like these and others. So I'm really enthused to see how it will continue to evolve in the classroom.
Thank you, Valerie. Personalized learning is key here, as education systems usually fail to adapt in everybody's needs. So I think this is key. Thank you, Nancy. Building on everything you've described about Equal and its national-wide impact, could you walk us through the GenAI, how GenAI is already being used across its CSR initiative today, and what measurable impact it has had so far?
Mm-hmm. GenAI is already being used across Equal programs, not as a future ambition, but as a practical tool that is already transforming learning, participation, and employability. First, in the GenAI Empowered Educators, a program implemented under the Equal, the role of AI is very important. This is one of the largest educator training initiatives with more than 700 teachers trained in the first cycle and another 1,000 which we target as the new cycle has just begun. Educators use GenAI to design lesson plans faster, personalize classroom activities, and create accessible materials for diverse learners. But most of all, the outcomes indicate that they do not only acquire the technical skills, but also the responsibility and maturity to navigate the pedagogical and social challenges of the new digital era. The program delivers 40 hours of structured AI supporting learning, including videos, quizzes, and hands-on practice at a scale that would have been impossible without AI-enabled tools, content production, and adaptive learning design. In our women-focused programs, GenAI becomes a core enabler of confidence, creativity, and business readiness. Participants have received dedicated GenAI workshops to help them ideate, test, and acquire advanced skills. For example, at the Women Founders and Makers program, 36% of the participants have established a new business, surpassing expectations, while more than 500 participants became fully certified as GenAI-empowered learners after completing structured AI-driven training flows. In Women Back to Work, AI-based tools supported over 600 participants in CV building, interview preparation, skill profiling, contributing to a 26% employability success rate. In Project Future, 420 participants looking for work have completed a specialized academy, the Project Management with Agile and GenAI Tools Academy, where they acquire practical AI skills such as prompt-driven problem solving, AI-assisted project planning, automated documentation, and the use of GenAI to improve team workflows and decision-making. The employability rate of this program is over 62%, which is very impressive for us. Finally, in the Piraeus Startup Accelerator, GenAI plays an important role in the early stages of innovation. More than 600 young participants, founders in the program, used AI tools to ideate and stress test new business ideas, analyze markets, shape their value propositions, and validate assumptions before reaching the prototyping phase. In many cases, AI becomes their first co-founder, accelerating the process that traditionally would require many weeks of research. So, across all this program, the measurable effect of GenAI is very consistent. Faster content creation and skills development, more personalized learning experiences, higher quality mentoring interactions, stronger employment and entrepreneurship outcomes. For us, GenAI is not replacing the human learning process, it is enhancing it. It makes education more adaptive, more accessible, and more aligned with the skills that emerge in a rapidly changing workforce.
Great. Equal looks like a very comprehensive program, and it's great that you use AI to amplify its impact. Keep it up. Amalia, you've supported thousands of teachers and students take their first steps with GenAI. Is there a particular moment or use case from the tipping point that stands out to you? One where GenAI truly transformed a learning experience or empowered an educator in a meaningful way?
One of the most inspiring parts of our work is the stories that we hear every day from educators. Every week they share stories of how they use GenAI tools in their classrooms. And some of them are funny, others are deeply moving, and there are a lot of them where we see new ideas that we have never thought before. So this reminds us that with a bit of creativity and an open mind, an educator can turn AI into a tool that can create exciting learning experience in the classroom. So there is one story that really stayed with me. A teacher from a small village near to Kozani told us about his class. He was teaching math and fractions to students, including several with learning difficulties who often struggled with traditional methods. So instead of explain everything on the board, he decided to do something different. He used GenAI in order to make a lesson more fun, visual and playful. So he described everyday situations, and AI turned them in a few minutes into little interactive challenges that students could solve together. And here I have to admit that when I was at school, I was not a math lover. I could never see how math could connect with real life. So this story really touched me because for those students, math did connect. It wasn't something abstract anymore. It became part of their world. So the educator told us that most of the students that in the past felt lost now were really engaged, and those with learning difficulties could were more focused and also eager to join in. It was that moment that you say, I can do this. It was that spark of confidence that stayed with me. And I believe this is something very important. And this is the role of the educators. So it's not something, it's very important for us to support them because the tools alone cannot make this transformation. It's the educator who brings in the classroom how the way you will use these tools and how they will be presented to students.
Great story. So I think that people like the teacher in the small village in Kozani will actually drive the change, and we need more of those in the private sector, in the public sector, in schools, everywhere. So, I think, again, quick, small wins from people that really think different can actually have huge impact. So now, as time runs fast, a quick one for all of you. If you could leave the audience with one principle to guide them in the area of human-AI collaboration, what would it be?
I guess move away from novelty and focus more on value and just be purposeful on what you're trying to solve for.
If I could leave you with one principle, it would be this: let AI amplify what is human and not replace it. When you will use cutting-edge technologies in a responsible way, giving equal opportunities to everyone to develop and grow, then we build a future that is brighter, fairer, and full of possibilities.
I would encourage you to experiment. A lot of these tools will allow for you to do things that you perhaps hadn't even thought. And we have lots of budding entrepreneurs, not just in this crowd, but whom we've seen who are using AI today to create. And so for me personally, I would encourage anyone to use these tools as a means to augment human endeavor, but certainly also as a forefront of creativity that is now in everyone's fingertips.
I would like to mention a quote by Marie Curie that says that nothing in life is to be feared, it is just to be understood. And now is the time to understand more, because that is something that will help us to be fearless.
Great, thank you all. I wish we had double the time to deep dive and learn more. Unfortunately, this has to end here. Amalia, Valerie, Konstantinos, and Nancy, thank you for being here today. Thank you all for being here today. I think that my 2 cents, as AI takes over tasks, humans take over meaning, purpose, creativity, ethics, and connection. And the GenAI transition is not about how machines will replace people. It's about redefining what people can become. Thank you very much. I think the most interesting GenAI Summit will always be the next one. So I look forward, and I hope we're here next year to share even more interesting stories. Thank you very much. Have a great day and a great summit.